I'm doing some fly-in camping soon. What is it, and why am I going to such lengths for a simple camping trip? This is episode 149 of the Great Outdoors Photography Podcast for July 27, 2022. Hello and welcome back. I am your host, Brent Bergherm, and this is the Great Outdoors Photography Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. This is where we are all about helping you to pursue your photographic purpose and your photographic interests in the great outdoors. For those of you that have been here for a while, thank you so much. And for those of you who are new, and this is maybe your first episode, fantastic. I am so glad you're here, and I invite you to take a look at the back catalog. There are 148 other episodes that you should be able to feast your ears on. Certainly, you'll find other things of interest as well. A few episodes ago, I changed the name to the Great Outdoors Photography Podcast from the Latitude Photography Podcast. So if you are listening in that back catalog and you are just wondering what's going on there, this is the new name, and welcome. I'm so glad you're here at the Great Outdoors Photography Podcast. You can find any links that I may mention in this show and the extended show notes. I've got a whole blog post written about this thing, and you can find that over on my website, brentbergherm.com/episode/149. And of course, if you'd like to get this and other notifications via email, head on over to brentbergherm.com/notifications. Sign on up and you'll get these and a few other, hopefully we consider them important type items coming into your email inbox. So we're going to get right to this topic in just a second, but really what I hope you'll get out of this is that you'll be inspired to do something kind of like this yourself, or well, just take whatever I say and morph it into something that fits for your own desires and your own plans. Because maybe it's not something that you're really into, the camping or the backpacking, but you could still stay at a hotel, fly in somewhere, stay at a hotel, and shoot regionally right there. So whatever it works out for you, hopefully you find this inspirational, and hopefully you find the information helpful as you plan one of your next trips. All right, so let's just get right to it. What's happening? Where am I going? And all the details about this trip. All right, so what's happening is I'm looking, of course, as you know, I'm always looking for an adventure, always looking for something that gets me out of the house and out in the great outdoors. And so as I'm looking across the idea of my summer here, I'm just thinking, where can I go? And I'm thinking, man, I'm going to get out to the Eagle Cap Wilderness. If you do a quick images, or not images, well, you look up some images if you want, but you do a quick maps search, you'll see that it's in Northeast Oregon, kind of sort of close to the Oregon border, but not really. It's connected because there's the Hell's Canyon area there. But anyway, then there's other places. I even found out this summer, there's a place, or the spring, I should say, there's a place near Bend, Oregon called the Oregon Badlands. And just the name, I was like, that's awesome. I want to go see what that's like. But with the increasing just continual march of the gas prices ever more expensive, I started to think, boy, even just going on a couple of hour drive, it just, I don't know, there's just that psychological kind of, I don't know, it just makes it difficult to pull the trigger and to do something like that. And so I got to thinking, well, why don't I see about flying somewhere? I've got all these Alaska Air Miles, and there's just plenty of opportunity up in the state of Alaska. Why don't I try doing that? Now, I've only been to Alaska once. That was way back in December of 2019 when I went to Unalaska Island, and that is out in the Aleutian Chain. So that's the first major island in the Aleutian Chain. What a fantastic time that was. Oh, wow. I kind of wish I was better at crafting a video type idea so I could tell the story via video of that experience. I did get a little bit of video then, but nothing like I'm going to get here on my current trip that I'm planning. And so, yes, had a major awesome experience, have been pining to go back to Alaska. And so I decided I'm going to go ahead and do that this summer. And it may not make much sense with my ideas of saying, oh, gas and whatever. Hold on. We're going to get all into the costs and what's going on about this. Because if you recall, I said I have some Alaska Air Miles. And so that's Alaska Airlines. And they are the only airline that flies into Walla Walla. So I just decided I'm going to use these Alaska Air Miles. One problem that I run into when I'm thinking about Alaska, though, is I very much can easily get into some serious analysis paralysis. And it's just crazy because the state is so huge and there's so much opportunity to go experience and explore the great outdoors. But there's also, since this is basically America's last frontier kind of idea, there are a lot of places that I know I could get into real trouble real quick. And that's really not something I want to do either. So I try and balance it out when I'm trying to figure out where could I go? What do I want to do? How do I want to make this happen? I wanted to do a backpacking trip if that was possible. Flying with all my gear and making it a real backpacking trip, that would be amazing. But certainly camping with day hikes would also suffice as I was going through this planning stage and just trying to think, what am I going to do? I also wanted trails that were easily accessible, at least generally so, and didn't require that I rent a car. Got to save that money, right? I don't want to be spending a whole bunch of money on gas or the rental or things otherwise like that. And so I'm also very interested in doing this, quotes, kind of on the cheap, as it were, meaning I'm going to use public transportation if it's possible to do so, but that needs to also be very minimal. So I don't want to be trucking across, 10 hours, bus, train, whatever you want to consider it. I just want to keep it kind of as close-knit as possible. Certainly there's plenty of places around Anchorage, plenty of places around Fairbanks. Alaska Airlines has plenty of flights to those locations. And then, of course, there's the Inside Passage. Now, the Inside Passage, also known as Southeast Alaska, there are many islands, towns, a lot of which are served by Alaska Airlines and the Alaska Marine Highway, which is a ferry system. Certainly, there's cruise ships, too. And so as I look across the spectrum of these different places to go, pretty much if there's a big airport there that Alaska Airlines flies into, pretty much is guaranteed to also be a cruise ship stop off where they're going to stop for the day, whatever the case is. So there's going to be an influx of people during the day. So that's something I also want to be concerned about. But I ended up thinking, you know what? I just want to not really worry about that. I just want to get out there. I need to be able to say, yes, I can get to this trail and I can get to that camping site or whatever the case is, and I can escape those crowds, even though those crowds are going to be there, especially in town. So yeah, that's why I settled on Ketchikan, Alaska. Now, I did look at Sitka and Juneau a little bit, and then there's also Skagway. I didn't look at Skagway too much, but as far as Juneau, I also was tempted. Oh man, I want to go back again in later August and tool around in the Juneau area, Mendenhall Glacier region and things like that. But I've decided I'm going to stay home and I'm going to start working on my fine art print studio in the shop. So I'm going to focus my efforts on that as we finish out the summer. But looking at Sitka and Juneau, they had some great places, but I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and right there in Ketchikan. For some reason, I don't know. There's been something about Ketchikan. Maybe it's just fun to say, but it's been on my mind for a while at least. And I was like, let's just do that. So after some research and figuring out what is better, Sitka, Juneau, or Ketchikan, I really liked the idea of the trails that are in and around Ketchikan. And so that's where I really just like, yes, this is going to be amazing. I think it's going to work out just fine. So I decided I'm going to Ketchikan. Now, here's another thing for why this is a good decision or a better decision than, say, going across the country or somewhere else. That is all about flights and schedules. There's a lot of news going on about these just airlines canceling flights left and right. And if Alaska does that to me, so long as they don't cancel my flight out of Walla Walla, I'm good to go. So if they were to take one of their flights from Seattle to Ketchikan out of the 5 or 6 flights a day that they do, it's not going to be that big a deal for me. So I'm going to be leaving here at flying out at about 5:20 in the morning, something along those lines. And I'll land in Ketchikan at like 9:30 in the morning. So I'm going to get there with plenty of time to get myself whatever else I need to do and get settled in and find my camping site and all that good stuff. So it's not like I'm going to be, well, even if I do miss one of those flights because they cancel it, or if I miss it, whatever the case is, there's still plenty of flights and I'll be able to get up there still. So I have a high degree of confidence in my ability to even get to Ketchikan, where if I were to say, I'm going to Florida or I'm going to Maine or whatever the case is, there's just so few flights, or it relies on other airlines or whatever the case is, and it just enhances that risk of the flights being canceled. I would prefer not to deal with that. So I'm just going to kind of sort of hold it close, as it were, and just go on to Alaska, where there's plenty of flights each day, and I just will be able to have confidence that I'll be able to get up there. All right, let's take a look at the costs for this trip. So I had mentioned I wanted to do this on the cheap, in a manner of speaking, and so let's take a look. Airfare. Well, since I'm using air miles, my out-of-cost expenditure is a whopping $11.20. So not a big deal, really. All that gas, basically, it's going to cost me $11.20 in gas just to get to and from the Walla Walla Airport from my house. So I'm going to spend roughly that same amount to get all the way to Ketchikan. And so that is just beautiful, of course. Now, I am also giving up 37,500 of my air miles that I have banked. And of course, that's what this is for. It's for taking advantage of, and it's for getting out there and flying and seeing the world. But you might also think, well, how did I get these miles? Certainly, there are some previous trips that I've had that go potentially years back. But there's a few other ways that I've been able to add miles to my frequent flyer account. I used to have an Alaska Air Miles Visa card, and I don't use that anymore, as I decided I wanted to be a little more like Dave Ramsey and basically pay everything either in cash or with my debit card. So I got rid of it. Plus, there was a $75 annual fee. And with the companion fare that they offer with that Visa card, that could be pretty cool. But I signed up for this card before the pandemic. The pandemic came along and just destroyed the opportunity for any type of travel. And now, as we live on the farm and the like, there's no chance that the wife is going to be able to come with me on some of these trips like we kind of had hoped would be the case anyway. So I was just like, you know what? Get rid of the card. It's not going to be worth it. So I don't use that card anymore. But that is a way that you could get some extra miles in your mileage account. But Alaska Air Miles also does have this shopping with Alaska Air, or whatever they call it. I don't know exactly what they call it. Please forgive me. But what you can do, they have plenty of online stores. And I definitely only hold this to things that I need to buy anyway. Well, when I need to buy a computer, I always buy from Apple.com. And when you buy from Apple.com, I can get at least 1 mile per dollar spent at Apple.com. Sometimes they run specials and do 4 miles, 3 miles per dollar, whatever the case is. And so with that idea of being able to, hey, if I need a machine, sure, I'm going to go ahead and use this idea and I'll get a couple of free miles, and it doesn't cost me a blame penny more. I don't have to pay any extra for anything. It's just because I clicked that button. And of course, it loads the cookies into my browser and they're tracking all that stuff. But like I said, if I'm going to buy the computer anyway, then it's going to come along, and I'm going to make sure that happens. And I get a few extra miles in my account. Now, some additional fees that are going to be coming up: baggage fees. I will need to check a bag. When I'm traveling somewhere, I take great pride in the idea that I can travel very light and I don't need to check a bag. Well, it's not going to be the case when I'm camping or backpacking. I do need to check a bag. Alaska Air has increased their fee to $30 each way. So I'm going to be paying $60 total for the checked baggage fee. If I still had that credit card, that fee would be waived. So there is that idea too, where if I were to take 2 flights a year, of course, that credit card would just simply pay for itself. So I might be thinking about that down the line to where I say, hey, if I'm going to get, flying a little more regular, and as long as I still book through Alaska Air, I'll be able to have that fee waived. And so, it's just something to think about. And it would pay for itself then if I just had 2 flights per year or 2 round trips a year. It would totally pay for itself. All right, what about my camping fees? Or you could also call it just lodging fees. I did look up a hotel because I was thinking, what if I were to just do a hotel the last night, clean myself up a little bit? It's nearly $200. So I was like, no, I'm going to go ahead and skip that. I'll just camp. I'll get back on the plane. I might stink a little bit, but I'm going to be okay with that. Hopefully my fellow passengers won't smell me too bad. And yeah, that'll just have to be that. So I've already reserved a camping site, and the total cost was $38. And I have another camping site that is not reservable, and I'm going to be paying $20 per night. So in total, I'll be spending $78 in lodging. Well, of course, that's camping fees. Now, what about food? Of course, food is something that we need to be concerned about. I decided to go ahead and bring most of my food on this trip. The biggest reason for that, well, number one, I can handle it in the pack as I'm weighing things and things like that. And I'll get into all those details in a moment. I totally have the space to take that additional food or to take the food with me. Still, for sure, I'm using a lot of dehydrated type foods, things that just cook very easily by adding water and the like. I decided not to buy my food there, in part because I didn't want to spend time there just shopping for food. But also I figured, you know what? This is going to be more expensive. So I will buy some things there for sure, but it's just going to be more expensive. I should buy food here where it's likely to be cheaper. They do have a Walmart there that I plan to get a few things at, but I'm going to hopefully hold it back. I'm going to hopefully be okay and not have to buy too much food when I'm there. All right, what about other camping necessities? I do expect it to rain quite a bit while I'm there, so I decided I had better top off the weatherproofing of my tent and my raincoat and my shoes, or I should say my boots. And I also wanted to guard against the potential of bugs that would be there. And they will be diminishing in August. So as the bugs diminish, the rains are increasing in August. So I wanted to be prepared either way. So I bought some permethrin insect repellent to spray on my clothes and my tent and my hat and my camera bag. And I still have yet to spray my hat, I guess. I sprayed everything else already. But the permethrin will just stick around on your clothing or your tent, what have you. And it just kind of naturally repels the bugs from those. I just think it's going to be great so long as it works. Of course, I do plan on buying some regular insect repellent when I'm there, but I'm going to be at least having kind of a double guard with this permethrin in addition to regular stuff that I'll be using as well. I also decided I need a waterproof food bag. I already have a bag that I can use, but I need a waterproof food bag. So I bought that as well. All those 3 items together, the waterproofing item, the permethrin, and the waterproof food bag, cost $56.84. All right, so the total thus far that I have as a cash outlay is $244.29. Now, here's the thing, of course. This waterproof food bag, that's totally usable on another trip. And so I won't have that, on my next trip if I were to do this again. And then the permethrin, it lasts a good long time. So I probably won't have that, as well as the waterproofing stuff. So these are kind of expenses that definitely would pay off in the future as well. But they were done for this trip. So I guess there you have it. So if I were to plan to go photograph the Oregon coast, that's certainly one of my favorite places to shoot. Gas alone would be about $200, and that doesn't include any of the local driving in or around the local area there. Once I get there, that's just there and back. And that price is calculated as gas being $5 a gallon and me driving my Buick. All right, some additional costs to come. So what's ahead? What are some additional costs to come? These are things that I'm planning for, and I certainly may have been missing something here, so we'll see how it goes. So, airline or airport food, I anticipate spending about $40. So when I get up there, well, when I leave here, I should say, it's about 5 o'clock in the morning. I'll land in Seattle at about 6 o'clock in the morning. I should have about an hour or so. Maybe I should look at my details. I'll have to look at my itinerary to see exactly how much time I have. But I usually get breakfast in the Seattle airport. And then, of course, doing something on the way back as well. In total, I expect about $40. So food in town, both on Sunday and Friday, I expect that to be in the neighborhood of $40 as well. And then supplies purchased in Alaska, such as stove fuel, insect repellent, bear spray, and possibly a few other things. I expect that to be in the neighborhood of $50. Certainly that might go a little higher. And then for any type of transportation items, I'm budgeting $75. And then, of course, gas to and from the airport will cost me about $5 to $10. All right, let's get into a little bit of what I am taking with me. So this certainly may be something that hopefully if you would like to do such a thing too, maybe this gives you a little bit of inspiration and a little bit of, hey, yeah, this makes sense. I can actually do this. All right, so I broke things down into 4 different categories. And so the core kit includes my tent, sleeping quilt, sleeping pad, inflatable pillow, a cocoon sheet, which adds a little extra warmth to the sleeping quilt, my backpack, so that's the major, hiking, backpacking backpack, and a sitting pad. In total, that comes out to 18.75 pounds, or that's about 8.5 kilograms. All right, my clothes. The unmentionables and socks, puffy jacket. That's a really, really warm down type jacket. A night shirt for sleeping in. Now that's fleece. My rain jacket, which is just, a really windbreaker type thing that's pretty waterproof. And a fleece blanket / hat. Now this fleece blanket, that I am tending to put on the ground, I should say, underneath my sleeping pad. And that will give me just a little extra insulation. And that's going to help me stay a little extra warm, which is very going to be much needed, I think. It's not going to be really cold there. It's just, it'll definitely be colder than where I'm at right now, which today it reached about 102, 104 degrees. All right, so those items, the unmentionables, the puffy jacket, nightshirt, rain jacket, fleece blanket, and a fleece hat, that total weight is about 5.4 pounds or 2.4 kilograms. All right, so things related to the kitchen, such as food, my food hanger, my Jetboil, water bottles, and my Sawyer Squeeze filter kit. Now, I'm not taking the entire kit. I'm taking just the bare minimums. It will screw on to a smart water bottle. And so I have a liter or 1.5 liter water bottle. And then I'm taking another bottle that the thing screws onto as well. But so I'll have plenty of water for hiking with. But these items that I just read off, this total weight is 7.3 pounds or about 3.3 kilograms. And then my miscellaneous items, I am packing my tripod. That's the Manfrotto 190 Go. And that also has a Siré head, a little shovel, and then a headlamp, compass, first aid kit, a light stick, some wet wipes, some Aleve, a little striker to make a spark because my Jetboil, sometimes it doesn't spark. And so I need to have some kind of backup to get the fuel lit, the stove lit. And then I have a blue duffel. And I have, if you were looking on the website show notes, beside the backpack and the blue duffel, I have a little asterisk there. And basically what that's talking about is to say, if I only take the blue duffel, I would save 6 pounds. So I could pack everything into the duffel bag. It's a nice big duffel bag, and I could save 6 whole pounds by leaving that backpack at home. But the problem is, of course, I'm probably going to be doing some actual hiking. It'll be on the road, but I'll be doing some actual hiking to get to one of these campsites or from one of these campsites. So I really don't want to be lugging a duffel bag all that way. So I'm going to be hiking with it hunched on my back as a regular backpack, as it'll be pretty good. So all those miscellaneous items comes into 7.17 pounds or 3.25 kilograms. And now the total weight for everything that I just read off, 38.5 pounds or about 17.5 kilograms. I am most likely, actually, as I look at this, I was thinking, okay, I can probably add, I've got an 18 liter or maybe it's a 20 liter day pack from REI. And I'll probably toss that in there too. It might weigh a little bit less than a pound, but I really like the idea of using that because that will hold my jet boil and the stove and the day's worth of food and my water. It'll hold all those necessities that I need, but I won't have to carry the big massive backpack with me. And then, of course, I'll have my camera gear, which I'm getting to now. All right, so all of those things I talked about does not include my camera gear. All those things I just finished talking about is my check-in luggage. And so now the camera gear, what are we talking about here? These are the things I will hold with me in the cabin, and I am tempted to take my tripod with me. I certainly admit that. And I probably could fit those into the cabin of the turboprops that fly here into Walla Walla. And if they don't have the turboprops, then they use these small regional jets. They're going to be transitioning to that here in the next month or so. But for now, we use the Q400 turboprops. So I decided that I'll just pack it in really good and have a lot of padding around the tripod and not have to worry about the tripod as I'm going through the airport, as I'm going through the airplanes and things like that. All right, so the core kit of my camera gear is the 10-bud DNA 13-inch. Now, this is a messenger bag, and you might think this is a little bit odd for a trip like this. Well, one of my criteria for doing this trip was to not buy any new gear. Now, I have one of the ICUs from Lowepro, and they have a great little backpack that this ICU fits into, and holy cow, that just looks so slick. And it's not very expensive either. It was less, I think, than $80 and maybe $60. And I was just like, oh, that just really floats my boat. I really want to get that. But I decided, nope, I'm going to just go with what I have. And I have hiked before with the DNA 13, and I know I'm going to be fine. But certainly it's not your everyday go-to idea as it relates to a backpacking or a camping type trip. Certainly if I was car camping, I would totally take my backlight backpack, my backlight 26 from Think Tank Photo. But I'm flying and I don't want two backpacks. I have my regular hiking, backpacking type backpack. I don't want another one, so I'm going to use my messenger bag, and that'll just sling around my neck, over my shoulder, as I am hiking up the road or whatever the case is to get to those campsites. All right, so the 10-bud DNA 13, the Canon EOS R5, the Canon RF 24 to 105 f4, and the Canon EF 16 to 35 f4, and I will have certainly the RF adapter. So the RF to EF adapter attached to that lens as well. 3 Canon batteries, a USB charger, and RF mount extension tubes in case I want to get into any macro type stuffs, because there should be some wildflowers available. Being this is August, I'm hoping that there will be at least a couple of wildflowers available. Certainly an assortment of memory cards, probably taking too many. But anyway, that's better to take more than I need. Microfiber cloths, and a lens pen. So that's the core kit. Other items that will also be in the 10-bud DNA 13 will be the DJI Pocket Osmo 2. That is my video camera that I'll be using for doing the YouTube videos and such. A small tripod, not the one that came with the Osmo. So this is really just a platform that has 3 legs. It's almost like a platypod, but it's not. It does have 3 legs that folds up. And if you were to look online at the DJI Pocket Osmo, it comes with its own little tripod. It is minuscule. This thing is like at least 8 times larger than that, but it's still a nice small tripod. Very small, very perfect for just putting that DJI Pocket Osmo somewhere. And since it's so much larger, it will be a lot more sturdy. So that's really good. The reason I say should is because one's on order, but I should have 3 micro SD cards. I have 2 right now, and I have another one on order. A wireless mic. Now this comes with the kit, so it's a wireless mic for the DJI. A recharge cord, of course, the Goal Zero Sherpa 100 PD. This is my battery bank that also can charge my cell phone wirelessly, and it has a bunch of USB ports on there so I can charge my Garmin watch and everything else that I need to charge. And it has enough power. It will probably last me the whole week without needing to charge up again. But since I'm shifting locations midweek, I may have an opportunity to top it off. So we'll see how that goes. I'm going to use my Apple USB-C iPad charger for the Sherpa. So that should charge it a little bit quicker than a standard charger would do. But it's lighter because I can also charge it with a 14 volt system that comes that I could use from the computer charger. So the computer for my MacBook Pro, it's about a 14 volt system, and it runs through the USB-C cable. It could run through the USB-C cable, I should say. And so I can also charge that Goal Zero Sherpa 100 PD with that, and it just charges even faster. But that's just a heavier charger, so I'm leaving it home. I'm going to use the Apple iPad charger. All right, so some prescription sunglasses will also be in there, a little water bottle, some carabiner clips, and a journal notebook to take some notes and such like that. All right, so a few additional thoughts on the gear. For a journey like this, boy howdy, I would love to try out an F-Stop Gear backpack. And there's some other, like Mystery Ranch. I found out about them a little bit ago. They're out of Montana. Some other companies that I think would be great to try out some gear. But, you know, I'm on this smaller regional aircraft, and I want to make sure I can take my precious camera gear with me. So the backpack would still have to be checked. And, you know, that's where F-Stop Gear comes in with a great ICU setup. Or if I were to use something from Mystery Ranch, I would still have an ICU setup. Just like I had mentioned, I have that ICU from Lowepro. So that's all good. But that's, you know, I decided again, I'm not going to be spending some money just on a whim thinking that this is just going to make my life so much better. I know how this gear performs, and I know I'm going to be just fine. Yes, would I be a little bit better? Would I be having a slightly better experience with some lighter gear and better configured gear? Certainly, I think there is a chance there. But I'm willing to live it like it is, and everything will be just fine. And that's about it for what's happening. You know, what I'm looking to do, I have a few trails, a few waterfalls that I'm going to be heading out to. I do plan on doing a follow-up for sure with a report on everything that happened on this trip. I'm going to be making some YouTube videos for sure as well. And for those of you that are in the Great Outdoors Photography School on my website, there's going to be a couple of videos, a minimum one I should say, but hopefully I can make 2 videos where this is going to go, what I'm going to be teaching is going to go right in line with the Designing Creativity and Photography course. And so I've got that course going. I still have more that I need to add to it. I have plans to keep adding to that. But I was like, you know what? We've got a lot of ideas about composition and the whole notion of what is it about composition that we go through? What are the thoughts that are running through our mind when we're looking to decide what goes in the frame, how the frame is constructed, and all that stuff. So I'm going to be actually doing that on site there, and I'm going to be adding these conversations to that course as a follow-up to, what is it, Module 3, where I talk about the Module 3 is named Form Storming. It's all about composition. It's all about what do we do to make sure we've got the strongest composition possible. And I am definitely in the mind of saying, look, let's take what we have and let us solve the problem that we have, which is communicating what we want to communicate with whatever we're given. So there's a lot of ideas on this notions of rules of photography and things like that. Well, what if whatever you're given doesn't apply? It doesn't, it doesn't work with those quote rules in photography. What do we do then? Well, I like to say, let's package those up and set them aside for a little bit, and let's work on it, understanding design principles. And so I look at these things as a design problem, and I like to go forward and say, okay, here's my issue. I want to communicate whatever I want to communicate. So I had to identify that first. I then say, okay, if this is what I want to communicate, here's what I have before me. And so I'm going to go through that step by step with a few different locations, a few different setups, and we're going to go through and apply everything we've learned in that form storming set of lessons right there in the field, and it'll kind of just wrap all together, and it's going to be a really good, the way I envision it anyway, it's going to be a really good, okay, we learned the theory, now we're seeing how that theory gets put into practice, and then of course you can go out and do that yourself. And that's just awesome stuff. Of course, we'll be talking about some of that stuff here on the podcast as well. But do look for the follow-up that's coming through here after a little bit. And boy, that'll be probably a couple of weeks, because I do have another episode coming up here in a little bit with Bree Stockwell. And then we will be getting back to this information about the follow-up of what I actually shot and the experience there. All right, a little bit of dose of inspiration for y'all. This comes from Matthew 25:13, and it says, "Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour." And this is from the, English Standard Version, I think is what ESV stands for. Yes, you don't know either the day nor the hour. Now this, certainly I encourage you, Matthew 25, verse 13, look up the context, because when I look at this and I try and think, how would I apply that to photography? Of course, that means I end up sort of taking it out of context, and that's not my intent to do. But photography is one of those things. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. We don't know what the light is going to do. We don't know what subject we're going to find around that next bend in the trail. We have to be prepared. That's the note. That's the idea, though. We have to be prepared. And how do we get prepared? Well, psychologically prepared, practiced in what we're dealing with, practiced in pushing our buttons and all those other things. Certainly being prepared is important. So yes, Matthew 25:13 on that one. And the next one, I saw this come across my Facebook, and it was accredited to Vince Lombardi. And so I looked it up a little bit, and I can see, yeah, there are some places that are crediting it to him, but even the Vince Lombardi website does not credit this to him, so I went even further. And so let's get this thing read first, and then we'll dive into it a little bit more. But that is, quote, "In great attempts, it is glorious even to fail," end quote. And that is so true. I can't emphasize this enough. In great attempts, it is glorious even to fail. It's about attempting, and it's about failing, and it's about licking your wounds and getting back on that horse and getting going again. And I tell my students this at the university. I tell my workshop attendees this. I tell people every time I have some kind of conversation with them, if we're looking for something that I know we can learn from, that's what I'm always asking about. Did you take the risk, and did you fail? What did you learn from it if you did fail? And hopefully you did fail. And that's actually what I tell my students. I hope you fail. And I just get these gloss-eyed looks from at least half of them. Then those are the ones that are listening probably. And the thing is, that's when we learn. That is when we are able to fulfill the whole cycle of what we're trying to do. We want to communicate something with the scene, with what we have before us. And if we fail at it, don't be discouraged to the point where you just give up and you quit. Maybe it's discouraging for sure. I've been there plenty of times myself. And I totally know what you're going through when that happens. But get back at it again and keep going at it and learn from your mistakes, and those awesome things that are going to come out positively for you are just going to be even greater, going to be just most excellent. All right, in doing a little more research on this phrase, "in great attempts it is glorious even to fail," it seems like it was originally credited to Cassius Longinus. So Cassius Longinus. And he is basically, as you look him up, he is often referred to, I'm just quoting here now from Wikipedia, often referred to as the Roman senator and general best known as the leading instigator in the plot to assassinate Julius Caesar on the 15th of March, 44 BC. All right, so that's quite a while ago. And so, if it's true that this idea truly comes from him, great. That's wonderful. But there are a few other things. So this is credited to Vince Lombardi as well. So I'm sure he picked up on it somewhere down the line. And then there was another one that comes from Bruce Lee. And so his take on it was, don't fear failure. In great attempts, it is glorious even to fail. So he added that don't fear failure idea. And I totally agree. Don't fear failure. Embrace it, learn from it, and push on. And go make some more great images from what you've learned, because of what you've learned. That is it for me today. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for clicking over to the show notes and taking a look at the additional information there. If that's something that you're interested in doing for sure, I invite you to check that out. And we'll catch you again in the next episode here of the Great Outdoors Photography Podcast. Until next time, God bless and happy shooting.